guys, what's up? It's me, Zach from Zach's Soapbox, back with another video for the week of Friday, December 5th, 2025. Hello everyone, I'm your little host of this little shindig we call Zach's Soapbox. I'm Zach. This is my little corner of YouTube and corner of the world. Once a week I get on here, speak my mind, talk about whatever I want to talk about, and upload it, and you guys listen and give me feedback. Maybe you liked it, maybe you didn't. Please feel free to like, comment, and share on this video. It really helps the channel and boosts the signal and whatnot. I know a lot of you watch, because I'm getting, at the time of recording this, we're getting around, an average video is about 250 to 275 views a week. So you got people watching, but a lot of people don't interact, and that's what the algorithm rewards is the likes, the comments, and shit like that, the shares, all that bullshit. So anyways, this week, bear with me. I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible and get my point across. But I'm going to talk about how intelligence isolates. Ever since I was a little boy, like when I did good in school, or we're, in math or in history class or in science class, and I'm raising my hand and I'm participating in class and I'm asking questions and things like that, or we're playing, a game and, or something, and you kind of beat people. You know what I mean? Or, like when you're like a smart kid in class and like the stoner kids want to pair up with you because they know you're smart, and then they want to kind of be on your team so they pass too because they know you're good at this stuff. That sort of thing, almost like where you're the smarter kid, so to speak, is carrying the less. I think there are different types of intelligence, but you get my point, where one kid or a couple kids in the class are carrying the whole class, example, things like that. So, but what I've noticed is intelligence tends to isolate people. A lot of people think that because of my disability that I don't have social skills, or I'm sheltered because of my lack of mobility and things like that. But I think a lot of times people, because what they see is my physical disability, they overlook my more quote-unquote intelligence. I hate to call myself intelligent, because I think there's different types of intelligence, and I think that intelligence is certainly the ability to adapt to one's environment. Intelligence is not necessarily an IQ test. I mean, IQ is just simply, you're a good test taker, and there's 3 different types of IQ tests, and you can get 3 different types of scores. Not to mention, on IQ test, there's a lot of cultural biases on IQ tests. Like, they'll ask questions like, there's 6 pigs, 4 chickens, and 3 horses. How many feet are there? But then, horses have hooves, they don't have feet. Pigs have hoofs, they don't have feet. And then you get into well, if you're an inner city kid from Los Angeles that never been to a farm, how do you know how many feet a cow or a chicken has if you've never seen a farm? Things like that. But so intelligence is kind of, to me, it's always kind of been the ability to adapt and make the most of your environment. I don't really think it's necessarily an IQ on a paper, necessarily, or a number on a paper. But so how intelligence tends to isolate. Let me explain what I mean. I took some notes, so bear with me. Okay, the more you think, the more it isolates you. The more no one listens and no one understands. People tend to want to kind of just keep things simple. And I think part of that is our culture with our social medias and our YouTubes and Google, where we get instant answers. We get instant gratification, instant dopamine hit, instant, keep things simple, and sound bites, and in YouTube shorts and TikTok videos that are 30 seconds, etc., etc. Short little dopamine, short little hits. Nobody really has deep, prolonged intellectual conversations anymore. This sort of thing. We admire strength because, you got to spend years and months in the gym. We admire wealth because you have to, it can take time and take years to build wealth. And, we can aspire to be wealthy and aspire to be successful in a material sense. But intelligence is different, because intelligence, you can't aspire to be intelligent. It's something that deals with more of a personal character, rather than, oh, I lifted weights and became strong, or I invested my money really good and I became wealthy. Intelligence is a little bit different because it's part of a character and part of the, who the person is at their core level. You know what I mean? So you almost kind of can't fake that, if you will. You know what I mean? It's just part of your identity. Um, and I think for a lot of people, when they meet an intelligent person, it challenges their ego, and it challenges, um, you know what I mean? Like here, you know what I mean? Nobody will mock me to my face, but I know that, people have said things behind my back because it's gotten back to me, which I don't care. I just ignore it. But I notice for me, a lot of people mock me, you know what I mean, or start laughing, but it's because they feel challenged and they feel threatened. So, I mean, that's true for any people that are really good at something or have some sort of talent. But then you add to the fact that that person is also disabled. And traditionally, the disabled are more of a disadvantaged or seen as more, uh, kind of more vulnerable or maybe even more inferior by a society. Then when that person is also then intelligent and you find out this person has a talent or an intelligence you don't have, then people kind of get, they kind of push you away or they mock you, that sort of thing. Um, the more you seek truth, the more you tend to disconnect from society. People are very comfortable. I mean, Mark Twain once said that, a lie can make it halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. So people that are truth seekers and thinkers, most people aren't. Most people are comfortable with an illusion. Most people are comfortable with, like, polite lies that they tell themselves or they tell other people to get along socially. I think it kind of comes from back when we lived in like hunter-gatherer societies as humans. We had to live in a group where acceptance from the group and approval from the group was more needed because back in like the days of like saber-toothed tigers and you're living in the jungle and shit, if you're living by yourself, it's harder to fend off tigers and bears and everything in the wild, right? So whereas if you're in a group, you have a more chance of survival. When we're hunting woolly mammoths during the ice age, in our little tribe, uh, we do better when we're together and there's 16 spears taking down a woolly mammoth and just one guy with one spear, so to speak. Um, so acceptance was paramount to survival and self-preservation. Um, Fitting in over standing out. Humans don't really prefer new ideas. They prefer what they already know to be true. They prefer what is comfortable. So we as humans, the problem with like really intelligent people, take say Friedrich Nietzsche, even Karl Marx, even take say Socrates, where he was put on trial for teaching people to think for themselves, in the youth in Greece and things like that. We tend to kind of push intelligence away because it challenges the status quo. It's a new idea. And sometimes that idea can challenge power. It can challenge, old orthodoxy. Take, say, Galileo Galilei, where all he ever said was the sun, the earth revolves around the sun rather than the sun revolving around I did it backwards, but yeah, Galileo Galilei, who said, the earth revolves around the sun, not the sun revolving around the earth, which is what the church believed at the time. You know what I mean? He was considered a heretic. So a lot of times, because intelligent people challenge the status quo, they're kind of pushed to the side, or they're kind of mocked or ridiculed. And nobody wants to live because it's an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes when you make people think, or make people think, kind of move outside the box, it makes them uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So like what I said in that video a couple months ago about the advantages of being a loner, is I don't really have to be, accepted, and that sort of thing. But so what else did I want to say? Always feeling misunderstood. I always have kind of felt misunderstood, you know what I mean? And laughed and mocked. And, anytime I've shared my ideas, I'm always scoffed, always laughed at. You know what I mean? But that's normal for me, you know what I mean? And as much as, I've always kind of been just a natural outsider, but I've learned to kind of almost embrace that in a way, But there are a way, and I don't think that people that are intelligent are just doomed to be alone. Because a lot of times what happens is, take, say, with, people in, like, certain philosophers in our own lifetime, Friedrich Nietzsche, Arthur Schopenhauer, these people, even Plato, who's now kind of considered, in Socrates, some of the precursors to, like, Western philosophy. Now we almost take these people for granted, whereas in their lifetimes they were outsiders, they were heretics, so part of the thing with being an intelligent person is you're just thinking ahead of the curve and thinking before your time. You know what I mean? That later on in life, if you have something truly to say, later on in life, people are going to see you for what you really were than just some kook or crackpot. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. But no, one way to kind of, seek out your creative pursuits and creative endeavors. Seek out other people that, think like you. You know what I mean? Seek people of similar mind. You know what I mean? One thing I'll say about Las Vegas is, yeah, it's the entertainment capital of the world, but it doesn't seem to be exactly a good place for, like, intellectualism. You know what I mean? Like, if I was a singer or an entertainer of some kind, it might be better off. But for someone who's more, alone with their thoughts, and I'm probably not all that smart anyway, because you spend time alone, there's nobody really there to really challenge you, per se. So, I've never really said I was smart. I've just noticed, like, when you're in class and, you're the one raising your hand and you're the one with the A's or B's and whatnot. You know what I mean? And technology kind of seems to magnify that sort of, we don't want intelligence, we want approval. When, like I said, you just boil everything down to a soundbite. You boil everything into, like, a 30-second video. There's no deep, long, meaningful, protracted conversation. There's no forcing people to think, that sort of thing. So intelligence certainly can isolate. You know what I mean? I'd rather listen to a good lecture, or, even listen to, like, an audio book of, like, say, Nietzsche's Thus Spake Zarathustra or something, which I haven't done in quite a while. I actually haven't read, say, Nietzsche or something in quite a while, or even some Marx, really in depth in quite a while. But anyways, I think I basically got my point across, is that intelligence can isolate, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doomed for isolation forever. And eventually people can and will understand your ideas and understand your thoughts. You know what I mean? I think it was Albert Einstein who once said, if you can't explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, you don't understand it yourself. So just look for ways to make your ideas more accessible to the public. I think that's kind of what the soapbox is here for me, is like, if I have an idea or a thought, I'm just able to express it. And I do the best I can to articulate it as small as possible. Also, the soapbox for me is mainly like a cathartic activity. And it gives me, like, a way of kind of putting stuff out there, so to speak. And, if it is just a catharsis, then so be it. You know what I mean? But getting off topic a little bit. But all right, guys, that's the video for this week. I hope you enjoyed. Like I said, please feel free to like, comment, and share, and all that stuff. The algorithm likes that. Helps the channel grow. We're at about 56 subscribers right now at the time recording this, which is about a month in advance. But all right, guys, have a good weekend, and see ya.